This edition of MacVoices is supported by LightStream. Low rates, great service, lending uncomplicated. Get a debt consolidation loan from 5.85% APR with AutoPay and a special listener discount at lightstream.com/MacVoices. This edition of MacVoices is sponsored by Linode, your solution when you need a virtual server in the cloud. Use the code MacVoices2019 to take $20 off your first purchase at linode.com/MacVoices. Welcome back to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, we really like to do a first weekend with whenever a piece of hardware comes out. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to find that many folks who purchased one of the new 16-inch MacBook Pros. I'm still looking at it, and I'm still thinking about it, but I did find somebody that you probably already know that have purchased one. So I thought, well, we'll get them on here and talk a little bit about what it's like and the goods and if there are any bads, the bads. Mr. Dennis Sellers. Dennis, it's great to have you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. It's good to be here, Chuck.
Yeah, I picked this up from a photograph that you did in one of your articles at AppleWorld.Today. And it's like, holy cow, he bought a 16-inch MacBook Pro.
Well, yes, for some time I've had a MacBook Air as sort of my backup Mac, and an iMac I've had for a while, and I decided to make life even more streamlined, so I sold the laptop and the iMac and sprung for the 16-inch MacBook Pro, and I've got it hooked up to one of the LG Ultrafine 5Ks. So that's my setup now.
So you're using the 16-inch as the computer, but you're using the external monitor as the monitor and not really using the internal screen?
Well, I mean, the 5K is big enough. I don't really have to have a dual display set up. But the thing I like about the setup the way I have it now is the 5K display gives me the same room I got spoiled with on the 27-inch iMac. But when I need to go to a meeting at church or go to West Tennessee to visit my siblings, or it's getting that time of year where here in Tennessee, if the weather gets bad, the electricity could go out and I might have to go to somebody's house. I just unplug the 16-inch MacBook Pro and carry it with me, and it's powerful enough and has a screen big enough that these old eyes of mine can work on it just fine. So even with all the programs I have to have open at the same time.
Okay, I want to come back to that, but before we do, let's talk about the configuration that you bought. What did you get? Obviously, the 16-inch. Did you go with one of the stock, or did you customize it?
I customized it. I got the 32 gigabytes of RAM and the 1 terabyte SSD, simply because I like to have all my photos with me on my hardware itself if I'm carrying them around, and with kids and 2 grandkids, I tend to accumulate a lot of photographs. So mine has been customized a little bit. And it's got the high-end video card, the 8 gigabytes of VRAMs.
So why did you make those particular choices? The 32 gigs sounds obvious. Why didn't you kick it up to a little more storage? And why did you feel the need for the higher-end video card?
Well, the higher-end video card was really, I guess, just a luxury. It wasn't that much added expense to it, surprisingly, considering I'm buying a Mac laptop. And on the other hand, kicking up the storage even more was quite expensive. I mean, if I had money to burn, I would have went with the 8 gigabyte option and stored every song, every video. But that would have been an extra $2,200 over the stock configuration. So I looked at my budget and figured what I could afford with selling a laptop and the iMac and putting a little extra money in. This seemed to be the best configuration that would do what I wanted it to do and still have be a little bit future-proof.
So I said I wanted to come back to the programs. So what does a typical day look like for you as far as open programs? You're using 32 gigs of RAM. What do you have open, and how does it perform?
Okay, now I don't have a lot. I don't do a lot of high-end video editing or any extreme photo processing, but with what I do working for AppleWorld.Today, I usually have Pages open where I do my word processing. I have Safari open, obviously, for web browsing, and that's how I access our content management system. I have Mail open to check my email. I have my calendar open to keep track of all my appointments. I have Pixelmator Pro open. That's where I do any graphics editing in. Then I have an Apple script that I run to so I send a headline to a Mac surfer so that they can put a headline up one of our original stories. And then let's look here, see. And then I usually have iTunes open, just playing my tunes in the background at some point during the day. So that's like 6 or 7 programs open and running. None of them are really intense programs, but still that's, several programs to have open at once.
And how does the machine hold up with that much open?
It's never hiccuped, and I've never heard the fans kick in except on a rare occasion. So it's been, it's been just as fast and speedy as my. Generally as the iMac I had, which I had 64 gigabytes of memory in it. So it's perfectly fast, perfectly smooth in its operation with what I do on a day-to-day basis.
How about now? I know that you haven't had it that long, so I don't know if you've had a chance to travel with it. Do you notice any issues with a little bit of extra weight, or does it fit in the laptop bags or backpacks or whatever that you typically carry?
It fits in I've got a couple of 3 laptop bags, and of course it is a little bit bigger. I can look up the exact specs, but it is a little bit wider and heavier than its predecessor, the 15-incher. But at least with the bags I have, it's not been, the size is not increased enough that it wouldn't fit in the bag. So it will fit in the bags that I already have. So I didn't have to go out and buy an extra a newer bag or whatever to fit it in. So that fits in well. I have traveled a couple of 3 times, and for purposes of the review I did on our website, I would just carry it in the living room and use it as away from the desktop just to see what I thought about it. And that's fine. That said, now if I were going on a trip, it would be just like the 15-inch MacBook Pro before. It would be too big, I would think, to comfortably work if I was in an airplane seat. That was where the iPad was always an ideal size for word processing or doing whatever you might be doing while on an airplane. So it would be too big for something like that, but carrying it to another location, to another room, fitting it into the backpacks I have now has not been an issue.
LightStream is where you want to go to get away from those high interest rate credit card balances. With LightStream, you can consolidate all those bills into one easy-to-manage balance with a rate as low as 5.95% APR with AutoPay. That's a big difference than the more than 20% APR that is the average credit card interest rate. Not sure how it works? No problem. A simple online application and you can get your money as soon as the day you apply. That's a consolidation loan from $5,000 to $100,000 with no fees. No transaction fees, no prepayment penalties, no application fees. I've seen how credit card debt can mount up at an alarming rate and create a burden that's tough to get out from under. LightStream keeps that from happening by giving you an interest rate that will save you money off what you're paying to the credit card companies and doing it all in one easy-to-manage location. Just for MacVoices viewers and listeners, apply now to get an additional interest rate discount. The only way to get this discount is to go to lightstream.com/MacVoices. That's lightstream.com/MacVoices for an additional discount. Again, lightstream.com/MacVoices. Subject to credit approval. Rate includes 0.0% autopay discount. Terms and conditions apply, and offers are subject to change without notice. Visit lightstream.com/MacVoices for more information. Thanks to LightStream for their support of MacVoices. I don't have the 16-inch yet, but I feel like it probably doesn't add that much more because the 15.2, 15 whatever, was never very comfortable on an airplane unless you had, unless you had the center. You're in one seat, one of the aisle or the window, and you had the center seat, and you could pull down that tray and maybe angle it just a little bit. Then you could use it, but otherwise, it's really kind of unusable on a plane.
Yeah, I mean, and the 16 inches is just like that. I mean, as you would expect, since it is just a little bit bigger, it's just as unusable on a plane. I mean, I've tried to use a 15-incher on a plane at some point in the past, and I could never make it work. I mean, I would finally just, whatever I was trying to do, I would finally just give up and wait till I land. I do have an iPad Pro, which I guess would be my backup machine, just in case there was ever issues with my laptop and it had to go in the shop. I could do my daily routine with my iPad Pro, and it's great for consuming content or even word processing or surfing the web if you are on an airplane. But it's still not gotten to the point with what I do that I could find it something that I could just use as my main computer all the time. Some people do, my daughter does, but it's just not gotten to the point where that I can make it work for me.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
I think that's something that, people are saying, well, it doesn't replace this, it doesn't replace that. Well, we're not to that point yet. And it all depends on what you do.
Well, if I ever retire, which I don't have any plans to, but if I ever retire and I'm not writing articles and doing research online and everything, maybe at that point in time, I would just go with a large iPad Pro and maybe have one of the ultrafine 4K displays or whatever, in case I wanted to plug it in and watch videos or whatever. But with what I do right now, I can do it on an iPad Pro, but it's so much faster and easier to do it on my Mac, and I just don't see that changing anytime for the foreseeable future.
Dennis, I guess as we record this, a couple days ago, there were reports of popping sounds coming from the iPad Pro 16. And now Apple has announced that it's a software thing and they're working on a fix for that. Have you had any of that?
No, I haven't had an issue with that. And the times where that I have carried it, to another location or carried it in my living room or another room just to work on it to see what it was like, using the keyboard and everything. I've been really impressed with the speakers. At several reviewers have pointed out it's got amazing speakers for a laptop, and I've never noticed any sort of popping. But I mean, obviously, I guess there is an issue with it, and hopefully Apple can fix it with a software upgrade. But I've not experienced it with mine.
Okay, that's definitely good to hear. Definitely good to hear. So how about the marquee feature, or what seems to be one of the marquee features, is the new old keyboard?
I like it. Now, I never had issues with any of the Mac laptops I had and the butterfly keyboards, but that said, I didn't use them, as I didn't use them as they were never my main computer where I was typing on them for hours on end, which might have been an issue. But I mean, if you like the Magic Keyboard 2 that Apple makes, and comes with an iMac, and you can get it for the iMac. I mean, if you like that, to me, that's what the keyboard on the 16-inch MacBook Pro feels like. So if you like that, and I don't have an older MacBook 15-inch MacBook Pro where I can sit down and type on one another to see how similar they are to that keyboard, but it reminds me a lot of the Magic Keyboard 2 that I use with my iMac, and I always enjoyed it. So I found the keyboard perfectly usable. And again, I haven't found any issues with it.
Well, now, going back to your setup for just a second, because you're using that big LG monitor, are you using an external keyboard or are you using the MacBook Pro's keyboard?
Now, I am using an external keyboard, the Magic Keyboard 2. It's just, I've got my laptop setting off to the side, so since I do like using the big display when I'm on my daily work, I don't use it all day long, but I have used it took a day off and did nothing but work on the laptop before I did my review just to see if it was comfortable using that keyboard all day long. And again, it felt just like using the Magic Keyboard 2. So I was perfectly, fine using it. Of course, I guess the test of time will be, have they improved the durability of it, where that it will last a long time without having issues like some of the butterfly keyboards did. But just as far as comfort and travel and those sort of things, I'm impressed with it. It feels good to use.
Yeah, I'm like you. I've never had any trouble with the butterfly keyboard. Um, you know, I don't know. To me, a keyboard is just kind of a keyboard, and I seem to adapt pretty well to whatever it is that you sit in front of me. I do like something that has a decent tactile feedback. I'm not completely comfortable trying to type on the iPad as the virtual keyboard, but even the keyboard portfolio or folio that they sell with it is, it's not perfect, it's not great, but I certainly have no trouble. And after about 10 minutes, I feel like I'm acclimated to it. So
Yeah.
I guess neither one of us have sensitive fingers.
No, and like I say, I've tried. I mean, unless I'm just typing a quick email or a quick thing for message. Now I'm no good with virtual keyboards. I'm like you. I have to have some sort of tactile feedback when I'm pressing keys, writing an article or writing a longer email or that sort of thing. But I couldn't. I'd have trouble using a virtual keyboard. It would slow me down immensely, to say the least.
Dennis, is it safe to say you would feel comfortable recommending this, depending on what someone's doing, of course, but as a Mac, are you comfortable recommending this?
Yes, I've had it. I got it shortly after the case, so I guess I've been using it for 2 weeks now. So I really enjoy it. Like I say, with the big screen, I've got all the power I need and hooked up to the external monitor. I've got a big monitor. Then if I just get lazy or it's going to be cold here in Tennessee before long, if I want to unplug it and go sit under my electric blanket and work in the living room, I can do that. So, and like I say before, my double Mac setup, obviously you have to, with it continuity and iCloud and everything was synced, but still you had to move from one computer to the other. Now I can unplug this one, use it, come back, plug it back in when I want to. And then, somewhere down the line, if Apple introduces the next gen MacBook Pro, 16-inch MacBook Pro, and I replace this, a couple of years from now, then I can take this one and hand it down to my wife as a replacement for her current laptop, or my daughter or my son hand it down to somebody else, where even though I really like my iMac, but nobody else in my family really wants a desktop computer. They want something they can carry around with them, and again, sit in a chair in the living room or sit at Starbucks and work. And so this will be a good thing to hand down to people whenever a couple of years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever from now, when I replace it with something else, then I can pass it along to somebody else in my family and give them at least a newer machine.
That's a really interesting comment, that nobody else in the family wants an iMac. I mean, the iMacs are big and beautiful, but you're right, they're not portable. And so I guess that just is more of the trend, that people themselves are a bit more mobile, and they want their computers to be mobile.
Well, my daughter still lives at home. She works. She has a Mac laptop, an older 13-inch MacBook Pro, or she did. She has recently transitioned to an iPad Pro. And my wife has an older 15-inch MacBook Pro, but they don't, and they both still work, but they don't want to have to go sit at the kitchen. They don't have have to have a desktop set up, whether it's an iMac or on the kitchen table where they'd have to go in there. They want to be able to plop down on a chair in our living room with this time of year Hallmark movies playing in the background while they write their letters or check their email or whatever. So they don't want to be tethered to a desktop. And so laptops are what they want. And my daughter-in-law and son are the same way. They want to be able to do their work or play whatever location they choose.
Yeah, and it's interesting to hear you even transitioning to that kind of model. You still find the value in the huge display, but you don't feel like you need the desktop. And that's kind of the way I am. My daily driver is, right now it's a 15-inch MacBook Pro, probably soon to be the 16. and I have iMacs at home, and I have specific uses for them.
Mhm.
But yeah, I can do just fine with a laptop, and then if I want that big monitor, I can plug it in and still have it.
Well, you're going to run out and get you one of the Pro Displays XDRs tomorrow, aren't you? So,
Oh yeah, Dennis. Yeah, that's definitely in the budget. Yeah. What is it? $1,000 for the stand itself, not just
yeah,
it doesn't come with.
$5,000 for the non-mate version or whatever. But yeah, they. Of course, I have a business account over at the Apple store in town, so they wanted to know if I wanted to come out and over and look at the new XDRs when they got some in. I'm like, no, I don't need to even be looking at those. I can't afford it. I don't need to even be thinking I really want one of those. So no, don't, just keep them away. Keep me away from them. So.
Yeah, I'll be anxious to see one in an Apple store at some point, but I can see the MacBook Pro in my future. I really can't see one of those XDRs in my future.
Well, I mean, I do a pretty good job of justifying things to myself and my wife. Well, I really need this new product because of what I do. But try as I might, I can't figure out any justification paying $5,000 for a display. So, except it would look really good on my desktop.
Well, and of course, then you have to have the Mac Pro to drive it. So
that's true, and I sure don't need to spend $10,000 on the computer. And since I got a computer, I've already spent plenty of money on already. So I'll stick with the display and the 16-incher. But yeah, we're doing okay at Apple World today, but we're not making so much money hand over fist that I can afford a Pro XD. I wish, but
Whatever you're looking to do online, you can build it on Linode. But not just build it, provision, secure, monitor, and back it up too. Linode is a full-service hosting operation with 10 data centers around the world, with their newest in Toronto now open, and the next coming in Mumbai by the end of the year. And Linode isn't just a hosting operation, they are a world-class hosting operation, with SSD storage, a 40 gigabit network, and industry-leading processors powering their servers. If you know what you want, you can dig right in, or you can let Linode do some of the setup for you with their easy one-click installs of a variety of servers. Find out what Linode can do for you by visiting linode.com/MacVoices and using the offer code MacVoices2019 to get $20 off your first purchase. That's linode.com/MacVoices and the code MacVoices2019 to take $20 off your first server. It won't be your last. Thanks to Linode for their support of MacVoices. Yeah, but you know what? I think it's interesting. I feel like Apple finally has built some machines that really are worthy of the name Pro.
Mm-hmm.
The new Mac Pro that's going to come out, again, as we record this, you'll be able to order it tomorrow. And so that means that you'll be able to order it by the time folks see this. Yeah, it's a darn expensive computer, but there's a lot of power, a lot of expandability in that. And the same thing here with the 16-inch. I was a little surprised that they gave up the 15, so now that you kind of have to make a choice between the 13 and the 16.
Mm-hmm.
But now that you can put 64 gigs of RAM in, you can put up to 8 terabytes of SSD, and you can boost the chip and graphics card.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it feels like, yeah, if I really need that $6,000 plus laptop, now I can make it. I can buy it.
And I think that if you do have the money, or you're a professional, creative professional that is on the move a lot, from everything I've heard, I won't say this 100% certainty, but I believe that the 16-inch MacBook Pro has enough graphics power that it can power an XDR display if that's what you want to do. I think it can power one of those or two 5K displays. So you could get the super big display to go with the super big laptop if you want to.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, hey, two 5K displays should be, I mean, I'm not going to say it should be big enough for anybody, because I'm sure there's somebody out there that is working on a project that could use more, but that's a lot of pixels, and it's a lot of horsepower to be able to throw in your backpack and take with you.
And the things I've read about from creative professionals, as expensive as expensive as the XDR Pro display is, the people I've talked to in the industry say for the people who would buy this, who would actually need it, the price is not unreasonable for all the features it has and everything. And like I say, I don't do high-end, video production. If I did, maybe I would spring for it, but there's just, for your average user, and in a lot of ways, I am your average user because I don't do a lot of, super, super powerful, computing task. It would be overkill for me. Or it would be kill for me because I would be dead after my wife came home and I spent $5,000 for a display.
Yeah, I can't justify an iMac Pro, or excuse me, a Mac Pro. I'm not even sure at this point, and this goes back to our discussion earlier. I'm not even sure I can honestly justify an iMac Pro. Mm-hmm. I'd love to have the horsepower, and I love this big screen, mm-hmm. but it's not portable, and that's what I really need.
Yep.
So we have devices for a pro device in each category that that is worth the money.
And also, I will point out that, and I have played around with this, and it was a pretty sweet setup. And if I ever make a trip where I'm going to have to be doing a lot of work in a hotel room, I'll probably carry my iPad Pro and my MacBook Pro, because with the sidecar feature, Mac OS Catalina, you could have the 16-inch MacBook Pro and then the 13-inch iPad Pro running as a second display, and that'd be that's quite a bit of screen real estate right now that you would have, with just those two things.
Yeah. It's sort of off topic, but sort of on, since we're talking about a new machine. How have you been finding Catalina to run on the new machine?
I haven't had any problems. I know that some people have had problems, and again, maybe it's because most of the software I run is Apple software, but I haven't had any of the issues that some of the people have had. Every once in a while, obviously, with anytime you're working on a computer all day long, something will freeze, or something won't refresh like you want to, and I may have to reboot. But I personally haven't found Catalina any less stable than High Sierra or any of the other ones. So I've had a good experience with it.
Yeah, that's the one thing that's kind of holding me back just a little bit, because if I'm going to get the 16-inch, I want to be transitioned over to Catalina. Mm-hmm. And right now I have not done that because there were just a couple things that had not quite been updated to where I need them to be. I probably haven't checked at that in a couple weeks, so they very well may be, and that would eliminate the last barrier. But it's just a matter of deciding to do it and taking the plunge.
Well, and I would encourage everybody, look at what you do and read the online forums and discussion groups. Just because the software I use and the work process that I have, just because I haven't had any issues with it, doesn't mean that there are not issues out there that somebody else might need to be aware of, depending on what they do. Obviously, you do a lot more audio work than I do, so you might find issues that I wouldn't have with what I do. And so everybody should check out the online forums and talk to other people and make sure that depending on your workflow, that there's no large scale issues with Catalina that you should be aware of.
Yeah. So we haven't talked to you for a long time. What else is new at AppleWorld.Today? You guys are just chugging along, you and Steve, putting out a lot of great content. You seem to publish a lot, but I don't know. It feels like you've kind of hit your stride.
Well, I think we have. Steve Sandy is and are the partners, the guys that run it, and we have a great working relationship. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, and he's in Denver, Colorado. So there is the time difference, which some people would think that'd be an issue if you're working together, but it actually has some advantages because sometimes Steve needs off for this or that, or sometimes I need off for some reason. So with the time difference, we can cover for each other. And he's much better at selling ads and sponsorships than I am. So that's what he does. He handles the social media, and I do most of the news reporting and a lot of the reviews. Not all of them. Steve does a lot of good reviews himself, but he has strengths that I don't have. And with what I've done over the years, I've gotten used to doing a lot of news coverage, reading press releases, talking to people, doing interviews. So I can handle the bulk of those on most days while he does his reviews or some news and goes out and does the ad thing and the social media thing. So I think we really work well together. The website seems to be running along smoothly, and readership ticks up a little each month. So we're in it for the long haul. I'm lucky. I enjoy what I'm doing. So people ask, when I'm going to retire, and I'm like, why would I retire? I'm having too much fun. So
my thoughts exactly. Yeah, and it's interesting because you've been in the Mac news game for a long time, and it's been interesting to watch it change and evolve, and watch different sites they carve out a niche, but it doesn't feel like there are that many that are delivering just a lot of news anymore. And that's one thing that I really respect about AppleWorld.Today is that, sure, you do the product reviews and you do the occasional tips, but you really are a lot more focused on Apple News than a lot of the other sites that have kind of come and gone.
Well, of course, I guess that's my background, but people that aren't familiar with me, I know my first gig with an online blog or new online news reporting for the Apple industry was with MacCentral and the late Stan Flack many, many years ago. MacCentral was, I think, the first site that really blew up as far as getting popular with readers and getting a really big audience coming in. I was lucky enough to sort of be in on the early years of that. And so I've just worked for several sites since then. But yeah, as you say, some, there's been several that have some come and gone, just like, when I first started in the Mac journalism business, there was, I think, 5 print publications that you could pick up at the newsstand. And, now at least here in the United States, that's down to 1. That's Mac Life. There seems to be, more in the UK, but, the print version of Macworld is gone. What was some of the other ones?
Oh, Mac Addict, Mac Week.
Mac Addict, Mac Week, yes. At one point in time, for those of you who haven't been around as long as some of Mac Week was before the internet took it. Mac Week was where you got your up-to-date news, because if you paid for the subscription, I think it came at the end of the week, and it was a weekly publication. So that's where you got your latest breaking news about Apple products, because at least at some point in time, as hard as it is to believe, you couldn't just jump online and read something that Apple did 10 seconds after they did it. So.
Yeah, we've sort of lost the idea of an industry journal. I know there's some in other industries I'm involved in that still try to fill that niche, and it's interesting that like in financial services, you still see those trade journals. You don't see any website or websites that have really established themselves as being the authority or one of the 2 or 3 authorities for this information. They seem to be holding on to that old model. I guess by its very nature, being a technology oriented kind of news, that's what would happen to the Mac and the PC magazines too, that it would all move online a lot quicker.
Well, and the trade shows have gone the same way. I can remember one of the things I think Stan and found me useful for in the early days of MacCentral was with my newspaper background. Well, I won't go into that, but I had, by necessity, had gotten pretty good at producing a lot of content quickly. So back when I was first started working for MacCentral, and for several years thereafter, even though the website was taking off, you still had 2 Macworld expos in this country. You had Macworld Japan. trying to think. Seems like there was another international Macworld Expo, but at least Apple itself was behind, a big part of three of the big global trade shows, and so I would travel and cover all those, and Stan would send me to the trade show for several other trade shows whose names I've forgotten, and most of those are gone now because, again, with the internet. There's just doesn't seem to be the need or the desire to have the trade shows as they were. I know MacTech has is really successful with their conferences. And I do some work for MacTech, but there's they focus on training and that sort of thing. But as far as just trade shows where people can go see new products unveiled and everything, those are for the most part gone.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, MacTech, MacStock, there are a couple others, but they've shifted the focus. They're not industry trade shows nearly as much. Mm-hmm. And with Apple products becoming so ubiquitous too, now Apple, not the company, but Apple products have a very comfortable place, I think, at CES. It fits in well with everything else because at the very least, it seems like there's an app for everything. So that puts it right into the iPhone, iPad architecture.
But but I mean, I have to admit, there's a part of me as I've gotten older is I'm happy that I don't have to go to a trade show. It was probably every 6 weeks at one point in time. There were so many when I first started working for MacCentral. But I do sort of miss going to the Macworld Expos. That's where I would see people like you in person, people that I knew. But that was where I got to see people in person that I got to know. And it was sort of fun walking around the trade show, seeing all the new stuff that people were rolling out, for the first time at the trade shows and talking to people. So I do sort of miss those. So maybe I can get back to at least go out to the next WWDC and see some things up close and personal and press a little flesh that way. So.
Yeah, you're right. That's another one. And that's a really good one because there you're just connecting with so many developers. Yeah. Well, if you decide to head that way, we definitely will have to get together and have dinner.
Sounds good.
All right. And Dennis, also I got to get you back on the show more often. This is way too much fun. And there's so many things I see things go by and it's like, I really should talk to Dennis about that. And then I don't. And so we're going to hopefully fix that in 2020.
That will be great. It's always a pleasure talking to you, Chuck.
Well, and now you've got that big, beautiful machine to talk to me on. So,
If the electricity goes out, I can go somewhere else and talk on the MacBook Pros.
Yeah, there you go. So obviously we've talked about AppleWorld.Today. Are you on any of the other social media platforms or are you just primarily pumping stuff out there?
I do most. We have AppleWorld.Today has Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. There's one more. I've gone brain dead. I can't think of what it is. But again, Steve handles all that. I just do what I guess I'm best at. What I really enjoy doing is producing articles and the occasional review. And he does the social media and the ads. And I do some content work for MacTech. And also, if you want to check out and I can't think of the URL, but if you go to Safari, your web browser, and type in OWC blog, I do some tutorials for their blog. So OWC blog and MacTech and primarily AppleWorld.Today. So I still stay pretty busy, but again, I'm having fun.
That's the important part. Well, we'll talk to you again soon, and thanks so much for the time.
Sounds good, and have a happy holiday season.
Hey, you do the same. Thank you. Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is Mac Voices. Are you getting a 16-inch MacBook? Did Dennis convince you? Because he just nudged me that much closer to my purchase. Thanks, Dennis. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with Mac Voices magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.